Go for it.
All right. There we go. All right. Thank you for coming, everybody. And welcome to a look under the hood of the UnBurnable operating system. And not everybody knows everybody. So by way of introduction, I'm Rob Orman. And for those I'm meeting the first time, my background is 20 years in community emergency medicine. And since 2020, full-time physician coaching, work primarily with emergency medicine and critical care docs. And I am one half of Guidewire Coaching with my partner and friend, Scott Weingart.
Yep, I'm Scott. I'm an ED critical care doc. I've been coaching for the past, 7 years on issues like communication and burnout and productivity. And Rob and I have been doing this course for 5 iterations, and we're super excited to be talking to you about it.
So over the next hour, we're gonna show you what it is, what this course is, UnBurnable is, why we built it, how the pieces fit together, and we want to answer whatever questions you might have. And by the end, hopefully you'll have a clearer sense of whether this is something that could help you build a career that not only lasts, that you can survive, but one that you genuinely enjoy. And so before we jump in, we want to get a sense of who is here and what's going on in your career. And throughout this conversation, we're going to ask you questions via poll. This is kind of the easiest way to go. So I'm going to throw this up there. How are you doing? Which of these feels most true for you regarding your medical career? You're doing well overall, managing, but feels harder than it should. You're running hot, starting to spill over into your life outside of work, pretty close to burnout. How's it going? Well, we have a lot of responses and kind of all over the map here. So most common answer is I'm managing, but it feels harder than it should. We've got some folks doing well, some folks pretty close to burnout. What do you make of that, Scotty?
It's not surprising. It's why people are here. And the folks who are right in that middle zone, I don't know. I think we start downgrading our joy sensors and our expectations. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I guess it's good enough. I guess it's good. It's like that cartoon of, the whole house is burning. And it's like, well, it's not that hot. We'll just keep it.
All right. So however you answer it, it's not hot or whatever. I think that there's a truism in clinical practice, and most doctors, most clinicians don't say this. I don't really like the medicine, but I love everything else. I love the friction. I love the conflict, the overwhelm, the sleep disruption. Nobody says that. Nobody, maybe a few people say that, but they're kind of the exception. Almost all clinicians love medicine. It's all the surrounding stuff that creates dissatisfaction. That was Neil put in the chat. I was struggling until I went part-time 4 years ago. There's a certain volume of shifts that physically and physiologically is hard to take. And the problem is that very few of us were ever trained to be as good at those other parts of the job as we became at reading EKGs, at reducing a fracture, at managing septic shock. But the reality is that all of those things that are also the job, these are the job. Communication is the job. Managing conflict is the job. Working within an imperfect system, that's the job. Mindset, managing your own mind, it's the job. And sleep, being a sleep expert, it's the job. All of those skills I just mentioned and more, those shape what your career actually feels like every bit as much as your medical knowledge. And one of the biggest ways that we set ourselves up for frustration is wishing it weren't that way. I wish every shift was like that one perfect shift, that one day. I wish consultants were easier. I wish there wasn't so much admin or charting. But if you're going to flourish in a high intensity, high stakes career like you have, accepting that this is the job is part of the path. Once you stop wishing reality were different, you can start getting good at navigating it. Now, Scott, you have been talking for years, actually decades, about this idea of acceptance.
No, you put your finger on it. And if there's anything I want you to take from the next 40 minutes or so, it's that whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, almost every single one of you in your mind is going in to your shift saying things should be different. Things should be different. And that little kernel of your consciousness of saying there shouldn't be 300 patients in the waiting room. I shouldn't have to deal with these incredibly difficult consultants. It's making you miserable. That's the thing that's making you miserable, because as soon as you realize the standard is overcrowding, poorly managed administration, horrible people to interact with on an everyday. That's the job. That's what I signed up for. That's actually how things should be. Then you start having all the benefits that come from that acceptance of, all right, how do I work with that? How do I work with my mind to make me actually not be bothered by that as much? How do I work with the actual logistics of the way I operate so that those things are minimized or shunted to the side? And all of a sudden, you start getting the exact job you wanted, which is all the good stuff still there. It's still in the midst of no matter how bad it gets in emergency medicine, critical care, those are the jobs I'm familiar with. It's still the best job in the world. It's just not the perfect job I envisioned. I envisioned this perfect job, only sick patients. I would just come in, there'd be, the perfect number of patients in the waiting room for the number of beds we had. I'd deal with just delightful people on an everyday basis. I'd call up a surgeon and it would just be bliss on that phone conversation. If that's the delusion I'm under, of course I'm going to be miserable. As soon as I start working with what's there and operating from that perspective, then the job starts shining again, and I start being happy on shift.
Now, Scotty, it's almost like there's a paradox in that. I mean, I think some people would say that, well, if I'm like, this kind of acceptance is a downer. I'm just supposed to accept that this is how things are and go about my business.
Well, I mean, first of all, no one's ever won arguing with reality. So paradox or not, it's not gonna work out for you. You can beat your head up against the wall as much as you want, but the wall's not gonna be bothered by that much. So just intrinsically, it's going to be a truth that if that's how things are, 99 out of 100 shifts, you might want to start playing towards the 99 and not that 1 out of 100. But beyond that, I think the actual things that drive us crazy, that make us say we don't want to do this job anymore, they're not as big as we think they are. They're being multiplied by that piece of our mindset that says they shouldn't be that way. That once that starts getting worked with, you find, oh yeah, those annoyances, they're not that big. I'll give you an example. I take a walk every night around 11 p.m. or midnight, and it's beautiful, it's dark, I could actually see the stars, and then I pass by one house at the same point on every walk where they put up deer lights. And as I walk by, their motion detectors are set so that I get splashed with bright white light. And it drove me nuts to the point where I was thinking of just trespassing on their property and like turning them all back towards that house. But then as I started realizing, all right, well, it's how it's going to be on that moment of the walk, I started, oh, well, they're not that bothersome. Yeah, it's like 2 seconds of my life. And then I started looking forward to it. It's like a little rave in the middle of my walk. and nothing changed except that little piece of mindset. As soon as I accepted, all right, well, now's the point where I get splashed by light, it just totally changed. I stopped being annoyed and I started actually, it was a little bonus on the walk. That's what it's like when you walk in and your trigger is, the waiting room teeming with 45 patients when there's chairs for like 8. And that's going to ruin the first 3 hours of your shift. But is it a really big deal? It's probably not going to change how you operate on that shift at all. So really that mindset piece has an enormous outsized benefit to your happiness on the job.
So acceptance isn't resignation. It's recognizing that if a stacked waiting room, as Scotty said, communication, conflict, interruptions, nights, weekends, sleep disruption, mindset are all part of the job, then they deserve the same deliberate attention that you give to every other part of medicine, which brings us to our next question. Let's see. I'm having trouble launching this second one,
Sure,
Scotty.
let me see what I could do here. I think I have to, yep, here we go, and launch.
Okay. Which part of medicine did you receive the least formal training for? Communication, managing conflict, managing mindset, all of the above? We had all of the above was a big front runner there. And okay, we've got mindset, a lot of mindset management, a lot of all of the above. I'm going to end the poll, going to share it here. And
I'm just going to open this for a second.
Yeah.
What's up, Scotty? Somebody?
Oh, no,
somebody jump in?
it was a participant. I muted them out.
Okay.
It was inadvertent.
All right, so these things that we weren't trained for, communication, conflict management, mindset management, or all of the above, these are not optional skills. They determine what your career actually feels like. Yet for this entire bucket of, I'd say non-clinical or non-technical medicine, most of us, or all of us, it seems, were left to figure it out for ourselves. And if you're here today, there's a good chance that you've already gone looking for answers. You've listened to podcasts, maybe you've listened to Scott, you've listened to me, you've read books, you've gone to conferences, you've experimented with communication techniques, mindfulness, productivity, setting better boundaries, workflow, and you've probably found some really good ideas. The problem is usually not finding good ideas. The problem is making them stick. And when there is accountability, that is when things stick. That is when you turn a new idea into a habit. But all of us can get a little slippery when it comes to accountability. Let me tell you what I mean. How sick or debilitated do you have to be before you miss a shift? I have worked with partners, you may have been one of these people, who have dragged an IV pole around with a couple liters of fluid during a shift because they could not imagine calling out. We are extraordinarily accountable when it comes to showing up for work, but outside of work, outside of clinical and technical medicine, there's no one watching. There's no one watching. Accountability gets slippery. Scotty, can you bring up poll? Oh, actually, I can bring up poll number 3. Which one of these things in your life gets the most protection? What are you most accountable for showing up for protecting? Shifts, sleep, exercise, hobbies, your family. It's shifts and family. The horse race is close. And here we go. We're about to be done. So sleep, rarely protected. Exercise does not get the same protection. Hobbies, we have 0% for hobbies. But shifts are the front runner. And that's natural, right? You're accountable for it. If you don't show up, there's going to be consequences, how you support yourself, your family. But let's take that one step further. I suspect that almost everyone has discovered something that genuinely made medicine better, more efficient, more fun. I mean, you are an incredibly motivated bunch. So let me ask you this. Scotty, can you launch poll 4? Oh, here we go. Have you ever found a strategy that genuinely improved your work experience, or you could say life experience, but stopped doing it anyway? It's kind of, yeah, this thing is great. And then a couple months later, where did that go? A lot, A little, maybe once, not really. So it's happened. It's happened a few times. All right, let me end this poll here, and I'm going to share the results so you can see that. I'm curious if you could put into the chat, if you answered many times, a few times, maybe once, what was it that genuinely improved your experience, but you stopped doing it anyway? It didn't become a habit. You just kind of lost traction on it. And I mean, personally, it was a lot of work, a lot of personal knowledge management systems. Tried that, and it was took a long time for it to stick, for it to become a habit, because nobody was keeping me accountable for it. It was just me and my own practice in my own mind. Hitting the gym. Yes. Who's going to keep you accountable for that? If you have an accountability buddy, maybe, but otherwise, no. What else? What else is, and Scotty, you're a pretty accountable guy. Anything for you that's slipped through the cracks?
I would say it's probably good sleep more than anything else. It's the thing that always gets sacrificed, especially when I was at the beginning of my career and I just wanted to fit everything in, and I thought I could burn the candle at both ends. And you quickly realize that you get away with it for a while, but you don't get away with it on the long term. If you're playing the sprinter's game, okay. But if you want to be in this for 20, 30, 40 years, you got to prioritize sleep, you got to prioritize exercise, you got to prioritize all the things I call the fundies, the fundamentals. And they're the first things that fall off when you start burning out. So going outside and getting sunlight, exercising, sleep, spending time with family and friends, actually scheduling date nights with your partner or your spouse, actually having avocations, hobbies, things you do that aren't work-related. All of these are what lead to a well-balanced, leveled life that actually is incredibly protective for burnout. And as soon as you start getting burnt out, they're the things that fall off almost immediately. Eating good food rather than junk food or ordering in. All of these things are the solution, and yet they're paradoxically the things that immediately disappear the second we start just edging towards that loss of joy at work.
So we have a lot of folks saying meditation, practicing curiosity, bringing healthy food, as you said, Scott. I used to do many procedures, a 10-minute jog, journaling, getting some sunlight. Yes. All right. So let's start digging in. You know, what is it we're all after? Why are you here today? There is probably something about the job that feels more difficult than you'd like it to be. Or maybe you're doing fine, but it takes more out of you than it used to, or it just takes something out of you. Maybe you carry home work with you. Maybe you're tired of feeling that you're always in recovery mode. Whatever brought you here, I don't know that what most docs want is simply less burnout. I think what we want for a career is it feels good. Feel like we're flourishing, for it to feel joyous. Now, joy might sound like a strange word in medicine. It might even sound unrealistic, because this phrase is in acute care medicine. Shifts can feel like another day in the salt mines. Now, that might be hyperbolic, but that phrase gets said. Everybody knows that feeling. But flourishing isn't the absence of hard days. It's having a career where the good consistently outweighs the bad, where you're doing meaningful work, and where the surrounding parts of the job, everything that Scott was just talking about, no longer drain you the way they used to. That's what we mean by becoming unburnable. It's not just anti-burnout. It's simply, it's not protecting yourself from misery. It's building a career that you enjoy living, because your career has such a big footprint in your life. We want this to be joyous for you. So to that point, here is the question. How preposterous does the idea of a joyous medical career sound to you? 10 is incredibly preposterous. One is sounds completely doable. We've got a lot of people in the middle. We've got some 9s and 10s that it sounds preposterous.
We're recreating the bell curve here is what it is.
This is a literal. Scott, let's watch this play out. It is a true bell curve. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll, and I'm gonna share the results. There we go. So there is some preposterousness to that. And the reason that Scott and I can sit here and talk about what we're talking about is it's not because we've come up with clever ideas. It's because we have watched hundreds of clinicians put the UnBurnable operating system into practice. Because every graduate of UnBurnable receives an anonymous survey after they complete the course, and we ask, "What do your life and work feel better after taking this?" And 99% say yes. And we have to be truthful here because technically it would be 100%, but we wanted to leave some wiggle room because in our first cohort years ago, we were doing our session on meditation, which you'll see, and we have folks turn off their cameras so they can have privacy. And one of the docs, while we were doing the meditation session, we saw this happening, got up and kind of cleaned their office and put things away and walked out of the room and got a snack. So don't know how engaged that particular doc was. So you got to put in the work for this to happen. So we figured we'd leave ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. Now, let me show you what this looks like, what UnBurnable looks like. UnBurnable falls into 4 primary buckets or stages. Each one builds on the last. We have mindset, communication, workflow, and recovery and flourishing. And over 6 months, we work through each of those in a deliberate sequence so they become an operating system for you, your own software, not just a collection of interesting ideas. And a question we get asked often is, what we're about to show you, where did this come from? Why did we build this as we did? Why does this include what it does? Scotty?
Yeah, well, both of us had been coaching for years on this individually, and we had just said it would be more effective from a time point to maybe combine this. We didn't know if it would work. The first time was really just a trial run, true beta. And we discovered it did work, but that wasn't the real revelation. The real revelation was how much group coaching added to the mix, because one thing right off the bat is you had a bunch of people saying, maybe I should shift jobs. Maybe I should find another hospital. Maybe I should move across the country to take another job. And then they got 40, 50 people they were talking with every couple weeks, and they realized the job was just as crappy on the other side of the country, even on the other side of the world, which didn't mean the jobs were crappy at all. It just meant they were the same crap everywhere you went. And all of a sudden they realized, maybe I don't need to move my family and go from New York to California because it's not going to get any better. Maybe I have to change myself and the way I deal with the crap that comes up at work rather than trying to shift to a new place. Now, that group coaching from that perspective alone was enormous. All of a sudden people realized that the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. But then people started coaching each other. People started communicating offline. We assigned people burnout buddies, someone you're just assigned to for the whole course, where you could just, really, you have a bad shift, you call your burnout buddy and you say, here's what took place. And they're like, yeah, that happened to me 3 days ago. And all of a sudden you don't feel so alone. You don't feel like you're, this unique situation. You feel like everyone's dealing with this. And then you start finding solutions in the course of the course, and you talk with them, with your colleagues, and all of a sudden something kind of magical happens. And for me, at least, I don't know about you, Rob, I markedly prefer doing the burnout coaching as a group coaching exercise rather than individual. I'll still do it if people are like, there are problems really specific to me, but I really try to shunt people to UnBurnable whenever possible because it works so much more effectively.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, that one-on-one burnout coaching was 90% of my practice about 6 years ago, and now maybe 5% because having the cohort, having the community of I'm not alone, because the way it feels so isolating when you've kind of lost that loving feeling, or there's this dissonance with your job, that's kind of, wow, there's other folks going through this. Oh, wait, they have solutions that I've looked for. I have solutions that they look for. And then it creates synergy. So Top Gun quote, what was our Top Gun quote? We have this in the, it's coming in. I have to pause for this. Oh, lost that love and feeling.
There you go.
Yes. A movie I think I've probably seen over 100 times, all in my teenage years. Okay. So Scott and I, we're going to walk you through what this looks like. And very briefly, I'm just going to show you what happens when you log in. That our course is made up of 12 modules. And each module has a detailed syllabus. The sessions we do are conversational, and we're working with you, you are working with each other. But each one, we'll just kind of open up this guy here. Inner critic, inner voice. Here we are, coming on. All right, so as you can see, this is the kind of the textbook that goes along with it. But I'd like to put this all in the perspective of how do the pieces fit together? And we start this off with mindset. And this is where in the poll, you said you had the least training. Yeah, we get almost no training on mindset. Nothing changes until the conversation in your own head changes. And the first session, as you saw, that we do is on the inner critic and the relationship with the voice in our head. When things go sideways, most of us become our own harshest critic, and they don't even have to go sideways. It can just be there all the time, that inner critical voice. And maybe that voice has helped you get through your training, but it is not helpful as a path to flourishing in your practice, your life. We spend the first session learning how to recognize that voice and change our relationship to it so that it doesn't get to do what it's been doing for most of our lives, which is running amok, and calling the shots. We build on that, moving into agency, perfectionism, and the dichotomy of control. Scotty?
Yeah, and I'll just say about the inner voice you just mentioned, Rob, it is the most underestimated of the modules because we polled people going in. They're like, all right, well, we'll get through this and then we'll get to the meat of the course. I don't need all this mindset crap. And consistently, they realized they completely missed the boat on that estimation because it, for so many of the cohort, becomes the most important part. It becomes the fundamental building blocks for the rest of the course. If you don't think you have an inner voice, then your inner voice is doing really, really bad stuff to your head, and just the recognition of it alone will have enormous changes in your life. But it is the pervasive multiplier I spoke about that takes bad things and actually just makes them far worse than they actually are. Agency builds on that now. We start realizing the things that are in our control and the things that are not in our control. And we start actually finding the capability of change for that latter group, and then a deep acceptance for the former to the point where things start bothering us a lot less. And that naturally flows into a mindset that's pervasive throughout medicine, which is perfectionism. And the idea that if we make a mistake, it means we're bad people, and we can't let that happen. So we must assiduously prevent it through means that are both impossible and misery-inducing.
After that, after we've set the mindset, or I'd say set the mindset work in motion, because these things all build on each other, we then get into communication. And it doesn't always feel like it, but I would say that medicine is a team sport. And some of the greatest misery comes from difficult interactions. And one of my favorite sessions is our third module, which is navigating the difficult consultant. When you see that there's a doc who repeatedly gives you grief when they're on call. I'd say many of us feel this little knot in our stomach before we even pick up the phone, or we just see it on the call board. Our goal is to give you the skills so that instead of dread, you actually feel a little bit of delight that they are on call. And I'm not joking about that. You will know how to approach the conversation from the beginning, how to respond when there's pushback, how to guide the interaction toward a productive conclusion, rather than both sides in either dejection or fury. And the feedback that we've had over the years is that this is one of the funner modules of the course, because Scotty, I don't like this term, but this is what we hear, is that they feel like they've kind of learned Jedi mind tricks. We have not taught Jedi mind tricks. We have taught communication. We say, oh, I used the Jedi mind trick on that particular surgeon who always gives me a hassle. Amazing.
I don't know why you denigrate that. I think that's exactly the way to think about it.
You think it's
certainly
a Jedi
are
mind
not
trick?
the droids you're looking for, and no, that's exactly what it is. And the reason people start looking forward to it is they get to practice the exact tricks you're working on, and now all of a sudden they look at it as a game rather than a miserable interaction.
So the next session builds on that foundation with broader communication strategies. Scotty?
Yeah, so I've been coaching nonviolent communication for quite a while now, and I think it's one of the most effective systems for communicating, not just at work, not just with difficult people, but in any conflict situation. So we go through that in the module, and then we add on a whole bunch of negotiating tactics and ways of communicating that keep you safe, keep the person you're talking to safe, and get both of you what you need while being incredibly cognizant of feelings and needs and the capabilities of conversations to go horribly wrong and the ways to prevent that.
Yeah, just by show of hands, by physical hands, have you ever experienced conflict at work? Adam, put both hands up, because that was a guffaw, Adam Davies. Okay, do you feel like you are an expert at managing that conflict every time? No, Julie, I think you strained your neck on shaking your head that way. All right. So yeah, that's the excitement that we want to generate is, I'm kind of looking for this little spark of conflict to rise its head so that I can start engaging in a productive way and actually build unit cohesion, rather than just stewing on it for days, weeks, or years, or an entire career. So after communication, we get into workflow, right? So many of you are in acute care medicine, emergency medicine, critical care, and it can become overwhelming in a hurry. And the answer to that is not to simply move faster and do the same thing that you have been doing, but just at a higher rate. It is to think differently. And we spent an entire session on shift efficiency and avoiding overwhelm, because we think that overwhelm's like, again, the overwhelm. Overwhelm is predictable. When the department blows up, we don't always have a different mode that we go into beyond just working faster. We teach a different approach. And we do that because reproducible systems, having a system for that is what helps you manage high patient volume. Also, having a system helps you manage interruptions. Emergency medicine, my specialty, Scott's specialty, is an interruption-based workflow. And it drives us nuts to have that. We want to make you interruption managing masters. And how to manage the enormous, ever-expanding task list without feeling like you're drowning. From there, from managing overwhelm, there is a fundamental change in the course where we work on how do you find joy in a shift. When we had our bell curve before where it seemed preposterous and you would find joy, it's doable. And up to this point, we've been dealing with internal and external stressors that make work harder. Now we build towards something better. Now, I would imagine that all of you have experienced shifts where something clicks and you're immersed in the work, you lose track of time, you're tired, but you're satisfied. You're in a flow state. Most people think that those shifts, that state, that flow state happens by accident. It does not. It can be cultivated. So we spend that session teaching you how to reliably create more of those experiences, regardless of the dumpster fire or how busy the department is. And the last part or chunk is recovery and flourishing. And this aspect of medical practice could not go by without discussing the most important element, which is sleep optimization.
Yeah, I mentioned the fundamentals earlier, and if you had to pick the most important one, it's sleep. And for anyone in the resuscitative fields, which is the majority of the people who sign up for our course, they have never been taught how to optimize sleep, and they don't understand that it is ruining their lives to both not know how to adjust to circadian disruption, but then even if they're on a string where there isn't, shifts going back and forth, night shifts, they still mess up their sleep. And it's not their fault. They've never been taught. But it's the only path to longevity. If you're not figuring out how to optimize sleep, you're not going to make it, past a, couple of decades. And we want you in it for the long haul. We want 4-decade players coming out of our course. And that's not going to happen without optimizing sleep, figuring out how to get enough of it, but more importantly, how to make the quality of it optimized to allow recovery. It's often been said by others, and I think it's a fantastic way to think about it, that people in emergency medicine, critical care, hospitalists, anesthesiologists, they're performance athletes. What we're doing should be treated the same way in terms of training, in terms of optimization, and sleep is an enormous part of that.
After sleep, we get into mindfulness and meditation. And several of you mentioned that is the thing that has not become the habit that you'd like it to be. Now, some of you meditate every day. Others have dabbled, decided it wasn't for them. Some would like to have a practice. We are not trying to turn everyone into meditators. What we're trying to do is help you become more aware of your own mind. And we've been doing this throughout the course, but at this point, we dive deeper because we have found that medicine is one of the greatest, meditation is one of the greatest force multipliers impacting quality of life, quality of clinical practice. And we teach how to do formal meditation, but also, and I'd say even more importantly, practical point of care exercises that take 10 seconds that can be used in the middle of a shift. Not everyone's gonna, sit on a cushion or go on a retreat or whatever, but everyone can learn to be more present, more focused, less reactive. When we talk with docs about what are the consequences of feeling burnt or feeling crispy, one of them is I feel less present in the moments that are important in my life, with my family, at work, or wherever. This is the skill we want to impart. Scotty, tell me about masterpiece days and lifelong learning.
Yeah, so we want, now that we're in the flourishing side of the course, and it's a wonderful transition when we go from this fixing the negatives to actually emphasizing, accentuating the positives. This masterpiece days is just sculpting a life around your shifts that is going to lead to such happiness that it's going to be a buffer to anything bad that happens on the job. So we talk about scheduling, we talk about prioritizing life values and goals and the logistical ways to actually put those into action so they don't fall off. So the accountability doesn't even need to be there because they're so ingrained into your lifestyle now that you couldn't, you'd have to work to not do these things that are actually bringing joy and giving you that reservoir of happiness that's going to be the buffer from the back and forths on the job.
And in the end, I'm just going to bring up the course again. In the end, we bring it all together. How do I identify if I'm getting burnt, and what do I do about it? How do I prevent it? And I think one of the more important things that we work on in that module is avoiding boundary erosion. How do I avoid work from bleeding into the rest of my life, whether that's where my attention is, where my energy is, and also how do you show up for work 100%? How do you put a boundary around work so that you are at your best when you're there, but also so that when you are outside of work, you can do the things that you love doing, be with the people that you love in a way that you want to be. Scotty, anything else on that module?
Yeah, you missed one of them, Rob. You missed lifelong learning and agency 2, and that is really developing a set of systems that take one of the biggest problems that causes frustration on shifts, which is the inavailability of an easy answer. If you knew what to do for every single patient that came through the door and you had those resources at your fingertips, and you just had like that one tough case the entire shift that you really had to like scratch your chin about, that would be a fantastic shift. You would really enjoy that. You'd have this sense of mastery, this sense of capability, and things just would seem to flow easily. If you had all of the administrative miseries of like transferring a patient in this complex way to like a pediatric trauma center, it was just, on rails. You didn't even have to think about it. All of a sudden, a lot of the frustrations of the shift disappear. And we'll teach you the systems and ways of organizing and creating that such that a lot of the misery disappears. And now you can just do what you want, which is good medicine. So that's, I think, the last module we didn't mention, Rob.
So Scott and I have been talking for a while. And as relates to everything we've just mentioned, we'd like to know from you, if you could permanently improve, there's a poll that's just gone up. If you could permanently improve one aspect of your work, what would it be? Now, we could have put in all of the above, which would be fine, but just pick one. Less stress, better relationships, better recovery after work, more joy in the work itself.
And we want to specify the better relationships are on the job. We're not going to do any relationship counseling in this course. We're not qualified for that.
Well played, well played. All right, let me end this guy here. And so majority said more joy in the work itself, but better recovery, less stress, better relationships. Scotty, how does all that sit with you?
No, it makes sense. Joy and recovery. Well, luckily, that's what our course teaches. So I think they're in good shape.
Yeah. And they all feed on each other because better communication reduces stress. Better recovery improves relationships. A healthier mindset makes work more enjoyable. These are not isolated problems. They're part of the same system, which brings us to how this course works. So we meet live every other week for 2 hours with your cohort. Between sessions, you put the ideas into practice. Then we come back and you've got some accountability because we're going to see all together how it went, what worked, what didn't, what stuck, what blew up, what was a massive success. And as Scotty mentioned earlier, the thing that previous attendees, graduates consistently tell us is that community becomes one of the most valuable parts, if not the most valuable part of the experience. I'd say this is the most consistent answer, because you're learning alongside clinicians who are struggling with the same challenges. There is also a forum, which, we're meeting every 2 weeks, but we are having a conversation in between those 2 weeks of how it's going, or I've run into this problem. What does everybody think? How do I approach it? There is lifetime access to that. And we have folks who were in our very first cohort who still participate in that forum. If this is important to you, this course includes 24 hours of CME. And the bigger picture is that you are spending 6 months deliberately practicing skills that most of us were expected to somehow figure out on our own. And this is our 5th cohort. And after this, the course will be asynchronous. This is going to be the last one we do live. We have an advanced course that we do live, but so this will be the final UnBurnable fundamentals where Scott and I are directly teaching it with an active cohort. Anything else on that, Scotty?
No, I think that's it. Maybe we should go to some questions.
Do you want to do the code or the questions?
Should I tell them now or should I make them wait till the very end?
Adam
right, we
Davies,
can
you
put it
get
up
to
now.
decide.
We'll put it up now, and we'll put it at the end. All right. So,
All right. Yeah, so we want to thank you for joining us here. And if after today's conversation you decide that UnBurnable is something you'd like to do with us, we have a webinar only tuition discount. That is how much is this discount, Scotty?
We'll see. It's gonna be a big chunk. We'll let you explore. You put it in, and you'll see how much it is. It's not insignificant, and it's a limited time. And I know that's skeevy to do, but that's the way that these discount codes work best. So if you're gonna do this, you better do it soon. It's one word: webinar asbestos. Webinar asbestos. And so go to the site. It's unburnablecourse.com. And put it in, and you'll see it's a significant discount, and it's a limited time. So we'd love to have you. And I'll put it up at the very end. I'll put it in the chat as well. And then let's take some questions, Robbie.
We have a question of what time are the live sessions, asking for someone in Sydney. The sessions are 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. What time is that in Sydney, Scotty?
It's I believe 3 a.m. We did a Australia specific one, and no Australians showed up. So we then did not really we didn't factor them in. What we have done, if we have enough Australians and New Zealanders who want to sign up, is the recordings are available for every single session, and then we did some special ones in one of the previous cohorts where we did live Q&A on Australian friendly time. So tell her if she's interested, email us, and we'll see how many Australians there are if we're going to set that up again.
Okay, so Alexander Wilson asks, what if you're not able to attend the meeting every 2 weeks due to shift scheduling? Yes. This is for acute care clinicians. And so sometimes that happens, and that's why they are recorded. And that's why actually the syllabi are quite detailed. The syllabi are going to be more detailed than a conversation because the conversation goes wherever it goes, but all of the resource and source material is there.
And as mentioned, they're recorded and they're put up the day after. So you'll be able to make up for anything you miss.
Oh, Scotty, I love that. How do you accept the wrong in the job, but don't become the guy that just clocks in and clocks out? Still thrive for change and better care. Thoughts, Scotty?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned earlier, and I say it during the course consistently, and I'll say it right now. It's still the best job out there, no matter how much crap they ladle on. So that good stuff is all there. So the person who's just checking in, yeah, they got the acceptance piece down, but they've forgotten the love of what they're doing. And so if you could handle the crap and then thrive on the reason to go into it in the first place, which is human interaction, relief of suffering, actually, using your competencies that you spent so much time gaining and feeling that sense of mastery of a craft, and your colleagues become, the way I sell emergency medicine, if it's done right, is basically you're being paid a not insignificant salary, at least in the United States, to hang out with your buddies at the bar, and it's just you have to drink non-alcoholic beverages. Because when I go on shift with the nurses and my residents and my co-attendings, these are the people I want to be hanging out with after work. It's the best job. I get to do that. And as soon as you turn off the annoyance, not the actual things that cause the annoyance, you can't turn those off, but the mindset annoyance for, oh man, the JACO's coming, or the waiting room's really full, or that patient's back again seeking, Percocets for the 50th time this week. That, the latter one could drive you nuts, or it couldn't even bother you at all. Like, I could not give a crap that patients are drug seeking. It doesn't bother me at all. I had a colleague, though, every time the first drug seeker on his shift, it would be ruined. The rest of the shift, 7 hours, would be ruined because someone's trying to scam him out of Percocet. Who the hell cares? It doesn't bother me at all. And you go a step further beyond just acceptance to really understanding that that poor soul seeking that Percocet is living a miserable life. No one comes in trying to get pain meds and they're living a happy, joyous existence. They're miserable. And so you start feeling sorry for them rather than hating them. And all of a sudden your entire demeanor on shift changes.
Sean asks, when is it too late in a career to do this course before you retire? It is never too late. We have had docs in year one. We have had docs in their 70s. We have had docs at the end, the middle. So it's never too late, Sean. It's never too late. We have how many participants in a cohort roughly? It varies from cohort to cohort. What are we? Generally, we're around 40, 30, 40?
Yeah, between 30 and 40, I'd say, is the average.
Okay, meetings are live or are there recordings? Yes, there are recordings. It's now midnight in Lithuania. Yes, indeed it is. But the courses actually begin 3 hours before this one began. So it's going to be late evening in Lithuania.
The perfect time to drink with a glass of wine.
Time.
Yep.
Let's see. Well, let's see. We've got Julie. What was your question as well? You can turn your mic on.
Yeah, it was just the same thing about not necessarily accepting. Like, you still want to affect change. So you want to accept it so you're not just burnt out and pissed off and hate everybody, but you still want to affect change within your system, within your team, within your practice, whatever.
It's such a good question. It's like a setup question. So the dichotomy of control we talk about in that second unit that I mentioned is two kinds of acceptance. Acceptance one is when you realize I don't have the power to change things, like how many patients are in the waiting room. Then it's true acceptance of I can't change it, so I'll just deal with it. The second type is when there is something that's changeable. When my dichotomy of control tells me, hey, this is changeable, then you should damn well make that change. And we talk about that in that 10th unit, exactly how to do that and how to actually realize that making tiny moves that make life better for you and all of your colleagues actually leads to increased job satisfaction and a decrease in burnout. So we actually want to affect change when possible, and we want to accept things as they are when it's not. Rob, did I cut you off? It looked like you wanted to.
No.
Oh, I love. I mean, salivating on that one.
This is like our favorite thing to talk about. And thank you, Julie. I mean, we're going to talk about this for the next 7 hours. Is that if you want to affect change? I mean, this is the paradox. Is if you want to affect change, acceptance is the only way to be effective at that, because otherwise you're just cranked and amped and angry, and you're ineffective. But when you can have equanimity surrounding the difficulty, then you are an effective agent for change. Thank you for that. I feel like that's like a perfect pitch right down the center. When does the UnBurnable course usually run? Is it offered in the fall, spring, or multiple times during the year? It begins on September 15th in the North American time zone. Would that be the morning of the 16th in Australia? And this is it for the live offerings. When it becomes asynchronous, it'll just be available at any time. But as far as the live goes, we have this one launch point. This is when we have done it every year, as we launch it in September. Let's see what else we have on here, Scotty.
Someone asked the same price for everyone, regardless of status or country, income, et cetera. Email us if you have a particular situation, and we are very flexible on it. So just send us an email. You can go to the contact link on the site. Again, unburnablecourse.com, and just contact us and we will make something happen for you.
We don't want someone to not be able to participate in this because of funding. So
someone's asking, would we like to talk about the unburnable mindset to Brazilian EM docs on our ACEPS podcast? I can't speak for Rob. We'll hear from him in a second, but my answer is hell yes. I will do anything with Brazilians because I love you people. And the fans I have in Brazil are some of my favorite AmCrit fans. And so, yes, absolutely.
Yes, that is, I mean, we love talking about this, and Scotty and I are down. Are we up for it? We're up for it or down for it? We're one of the two. We're both.
Either. Yes, we're both.
We're both yes. Up and
Paradox.
down.
Yes.
Where else do we have? We have any other questions on here, Scotty?
No. Let me flash that discount code one more time. It's in the chat as well. There we go. So webinar asbestos, one word. Webinar asbestos.
Yes. Okay. We will. We are about a time. Let's see. Okay, you'll email us. Great. Scotty, any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I hope I see many of you in the cohort, because it would be truly joyful to work on these issues. This brings so much satisfaction to my career to be able to interact on this stuff, because we see the results. We see people come in crispy and they go out different people than when they came in. And we've had a not insignificant number who have told us we were about to quit our jobs, and then this course changed the perspective, and now they're thriving. I can't make any promises that that'll happen, but it has happened in prior cohorts to a bunch of people.
Oh, Sarah asks, when is a closing date for applications? So that
The day before.
that webinar discount code is that's for a week. We don't have a closing date for. I mean, if the course fills, which it does, but there's no predictable time for that, then we'll close it. But we don't have a set closing date for it.
All right.
Okay.
Let's say goodbye.
Friends, thank you so much for spending your afternoon, evening, morning, midnights, wee hours, mid hours with us. Hope to see you at UnBurnable on September 15th. Till then, keep on rocking.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.